I swear, no matter how many times I think I've said all I can on this subject, there's always something else to say. I've made multiple videos about Yozora and the Nameless Star and the Save Sora thing, and one of them was even like 22 minutes long, and somehow, despite making all of those videos, I missed out on this one crucial detail. Now, this detail is related to this particular piece of dialogue that Yozora says just before we fight him.
I accidentally wandered into this place and went through some trials. Then, I was told to save Sora.
These few lines spawned a bunch of different theories. Most of them are usually relating to the trials and who told Yozora to save Sora, which is what I'm going to be focusing on today. Something that I think many of us have missed, including myself, is the actual implications of what is actually being said when Yozora says that he was told to save Sora. For those of you who came to my stream when I did it about a month ago, some of you may already know where I'm going to go with this one. This was an observation I'd made a few months ago, but that stream was the first time that I'd actually brought it up. So basically, I want to focus on the actual chronology of what Yozora says happened. So I'm taking his words literally here. I'm taking what he says at face value. I'm assuming that he's not lying and that he's given us the information as accurately as possible. So with that being said, let's break down exactly what he says here. So the first part of this sentence is that he says he accidentally wandered into this place. Now this is important because how he starts this sentence has implications for how he ends it. The place he wandered into must be this dream Shibuya he's in, because he's saying it as they're currently standing there, or at the very least this final world or dream place he has come to through his sleep. That is the place that he's accidentally wandered into, which explains why it was an accident. He probably just intended to go to sleep or something, but he instead ended up in this dream world. Now, I've discussed before whether or not this Shibuya is the real Shibuya or a dream Shibuya, and how that may differ from Quadratum and that they may not be the same place. And I've also brought up before how in unreality they may have different realms similar to how Kingdom Hearts does, such as a datascape, a dreamscape, and things of that nature. But the important part for this video is just to understand that as far as we can tell, the place he's accidentally wandered into is this dream world. And remember, earlier he says to Sora that this is not the real world, so we know he's aware that the place that they're in is separate from the world that he wakes up to in his car. Now the next line he says is about how he went through some trials. Now many theories have come up about these trials, the most common of which is that he's been playing the Reaper's game from The World Ends With You. I've suggested before that I think it might have something to do with the commercial we saw, because that takes place in Shibuya as well, and the Shibuya it takes place in seems very similar to this dream Shibuya, which again is what leads me to believe the Shibuya we've seen so far is somehow separate from Quadratum. But all we need to know for this video is that according to him, these trials happened after he accidentally wandered into this dream place. And this leads to this final line where he says, "Then I was told to save Sora." So if we follow the chronology of everything he stated leading up to that final part, that means that whoever told him to save Sora told him that after he wandered into this dream Shibuya or this dream place and went through the trials in that dream world. In other words, the person who told him to save Sora must be in the dream Shibuya and not someone who would be outside of it. So oftentimes people have said that they think his driver, who we believe is Locksword, might have been the one who told him. I used to think he was a possible candidate as well, but I always had a bit of an issue with Locksword being one of the people. Because a common point people would make is that, well, it seems Yozora is following a mission, like he was ordered by someone to save Sora. But my issue with that is, how could Locksword, if it is Locksword, whoever that is, his driver basically, how could his driver be ordering him to do anything when he's his driver and he addresses him as commander? It just doesn't seem likely that his driver would be the one giving him an order. You'd think it'd be someone who would be his superior. At least that's just what I would think. So I don't think it's his driver because they're in the real world, as he calls it, and that also cancels out anyone else who would meet him in the real world. I haven't ever really believed it's a Kingdom Hearts character that knows Sora that told him, because the question that I always kept asking about that was, why doesn't he just recognize Sora then? And why would he fight Sora if one of Sora's friends were the ones to tell him to save Sora? But yeah, I've made 4 videos on that, so I'm not going to repeat my points, but basically it never really added up to me, and now that I've realized what he was actually saying here, it makes even less sense. So when I brought this idea up in my stream, someone did say that they think Yozora could have woken up out of his dream and been told by someone like Locksword or someone else. But the issue is that there's no evidence to suggest that. If we go by what Yozora has actually said, he's saying it all happened one after the other with no interruptions. He could be leaving out the interruptions, but we've got no proof of that. But we do have plenty of proof that all of this has happened in the same one dream. And just to quickly address this, just in case someone decides to bring it up, when the driver says,
"Impressive, is it not?"
I'm confident he's referring to the city outside the window, because if you look at the original Versus 13 trailer that this scene is based on, Noctis is looking out the window and sees the city of Insomnia. But interestingly, that part isn't done in this scene with Yozora, despite almost everything else being almost shot for shot, or at least very close. Maybe that's because whatever city is outside the window is something we're not meant to see just yet. Maybe it would prove that Quadratum and the Dream Shibuya that we've seen are not actually as related as we think they are. I don't know, but it's just an extra thing to consider. So with all of that being said then, who could it be if it is indeed someone from the Dream Shibuya? Well, I have thought for the longest time now that it could be the Master of Masters, and now that I consider it being someone from this dream place, that seems even more likely than the alternatives, because we saw the Master of Masters in the secret ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, and we saw that he was in Shibuya just like Sora, Yozora, and the Nameless Star is. It is also possible that it could be someone from The World Ends With You if it turns out that The World Ends With You is somehow connected to all of this. But Nomura has said before that these are two different Shibuyas, and I'm not certain if the World Ends With You cast would actually remember Sora anyway, but I don't know. I have suggested in the past it's possible, so I'm not going to completely rule it out. But even if you go with the World Ends With You cast, it still runs into the same issues that I have with Riku or someone that Sora knows telling Yozora to save Sora, which is, why doesn't Yozora recognize him? It still runs into that same problem. So I'm not sure how likely the World Ends With You cast is for being the ones that told Yozora, but based on what we've actually seen, if I just don't do any headcanon, if we look at the people that we can confirm for certain are in Shibuya, specifically Shibuya, then we know that we've seen Yozora there, we've seen his two friends there who may still be called Magia and Aegis, we don't know, but they may still have those names, the Nameless Star or Nameless Woman, and the Master of Masters. So based on that, the only person who really fits that we know for certain has been seen in Shibuya so far is the Master of Masters. And that's the person I thought made the most sense anyway. But the question that still remains is, if it is him, why would he tell Yozora to save Sora? I don't know, but it might explain a lot more things, such as why Yozora doesn't recognize Sora or why he fights him, because the Master of Masters is the perfect type of person to be trying to manipulate Yozora in some way, just like he did back in the Kingdom Hearts universe with the Foretellers. Why and to what end is something we'd have to guess about, but let's be real, there's a lot of things about the Master of Masters we still don't fully understand. So, in conclusion, I basically believe that based on what Yozora has literally said out of his own mouth, the person that told him to save Sora would have to be someone from within the dream world, rather than anyone from outside of it. I'm seeing it as all of these events, him wandering into that place, the trials which I think are related to the commercial or maybe the minigame, him seeing Riku in Shinjuku, him being told to save Sora, him meeting Kingdom Hearts Sora and fighting him, all of that for him was basically just one eventful dream. That's what I think basically has happened. And then he wakes up back into the real world in his car, and that's when he's wondering if any of this was for real or not. I'm guessing we'll meet Riku at some point in Quadratum or something, and that's when he'll realize that the Sora he met in his dreams and everything that happened in his dreams, from the trials to whoever told him to save Sora, all of that was actually a real thing, and I guess we'll go from there. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. You guys let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the bell button so you're notified when I drop more theories and other videos similar to this. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. My name is NextGenNovelist, and that's all I've got to say, and I'm out. Peace.